All right. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Michigan. Welcome to Ushanka Show live. I hope we're going to last at least an hour. I got issue with my computer. I'm not sure why, but about an hour. I My computer freezes. So anyway, thank you very much for joining. Looks like we got already some people here. And the main topic of today's conversation, once again, I'll be answering your questions. First of all, I'll be answering questions, people who will be generously donating money. All the money will go to support uh, my brother's unit in Ukraine. And the main topic today, of course, it's war in Afghanistan, the Soviet part. As I mentioned in my announcement, 45 years ago, on December 27th, that's when the Soviet troops started entering Afghanistan. Airborne forces landed in Kabul. They attempted to take over presidential palace. They faced resistance, real battle ensured. They end up killing the leader of. Can't really say if he was a president of Afghanistan or was he a legitimate president of Afghanistan. Amin, but anyway, Soviets killed him. And the main story that they presented us in the Soviet Union, that we went to Afghanistan to perform our international duty, международный долг. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I see several people joining, saying hello. I hope sound is okay. So I already mentioned several times before in my channel that my generation, born in 1971, we were lucky. We're pretty much the last full-time Soviet generation. We finished school. Some people went to college, some people went to trade schools, and some people went to military. But people born in 1971 turned 18, and that's the age of draft, in 1989. And in 1988, it's when Soviet Union began to withdraw troops. It took them almost a year, and we'll talk about it later. So they began withdrawal in 1988 and they finished in 1989. So when my people of my age, my classmates got drafted, no one was going to Afghanistan anymore. So that was good news. So I don't know anybody who went to Afghanistan like personally. Although in my like in my school, in my class, there were several Soviet gun ho type of people that wanted to join the fight. There's always people like that. So I had at least three or four that actually wanted to go there to Afghanistan. But usually, most people try to dodge as much if it's possible to go anywhere but Afghanistan, because it was getting pretty ugly. So, as I said, my generation got lucky in that regards. And of course, 89, 88, we're talking about perestroika time and glasnost. So in the newspapers, we started getting real story what's going on in Afghanistan, and it was ugly. Because in the beginning, when we watch news about Afghanistan, they never call it a war. Just like Putin right now refuses to call war in Ukraine as war. It was just international duty. We just did наш internationальный долг, like almost like our international debt to the people of Afghanistan. And they called Soviet soldiers, it was a ограниченный контингент. I still remember this wording. So it's like a limited contingent of troops. And that they basically performed almost like humanitarian help. They were, uh, you know, putting power lines to the small villages in the mountains, and they built schools, planted trees. So this is what we saw in the news. So it's almost like a picnic in Afghanistan. We're just helping Afghan people to have a better life. But when the perestroika and glasnost came in, we started getting articles in the newspapers about real situation. And guess what? I got some. Because when they started coming up in the newspapers, I was so stunned about the stories that I actually started collecting these articles. Unfortunately, I didn't mark what year, just say May 10. But this is probably, I don't know, 87, 88. So this is one article talking about remember everyone by name. Okay, so that's around 1988 because it says that we're waiting our sons to come home. We're supposed to get our troops out no later than February 15, 1989. So this is like an article that describes some battle that occurred in Afghanistan, and it was forces were not equal, so there was more Taliban or Mujahideen at that time they were called, right? So and that's basically article says about these people how they fought, sacrificed, and that was basically. So they got medals. So they sacrificed their lives to let other people to escape. So, like I said, I was so shocked that I already was cutting these articles off, and if I have time one day, I'll start translating and putting together. So there's one of them, and I went through my archive. I brought it. I was a nerd. I'm still a nerd, but man, it's almost like I knew I'm gonna have another one. Oh, that's a quote of Leonid Brezhnev. Мы будем твердо стоять на страже интересов безопасности обоих наших государств и выполним свой интернациональный долг перед афганским народом. We will stand firmly guarding the interest and safety of both our nations, our states, and we will perform our international debt uh, before the Afghan people, Leonid Brezhnev. So that was a part of his spiel. So I cut that article off too. And this is, I believe it's a General Gromov. He was in charge of that limited contingent of the Soviet troops, and that he was the last to walk across the bridge. So I really quickly to the topic. There's one of the modern day Russians saying, "Look, uh, how great the Soviets did, great job they did removing troops from Afghanistan, and look how messy and what a disaster it was when Americans were removing troops from Afghanistan. There's only difference. There is a border between Soviet Union and Afghanistan, and it's way easier to remove troops by roads than fly everything out, and you basically have to abandon so much equipment because it's just cost prohibitive to fly heavy equipment on the planes. There were, I don't remember how many years Americans were in Afghanistan, but it's hard to remove in 3 months what you brought there in 12 years or whatever, or 18 years. So yeah, so this is pretty much article about troops withdrawal of the troops in 1989. So I got that. So yeah, that topic was definitely a lot of interest to me because I used a lot of articles. So there's another one. It's about just the ordinary guy who got drafted, went to serve in Afghanistan, didn't dodge the bullet, got award. Big article. I don't remember this article at all, but yeah, look at the size of it. So yeah, so that's a story about. I think he's alive. That's Injury with him. So basically, he describes one occurrence of the fight with the insurgents. So that's another one. Yeah, I started digging in my archive, and I was like, oh man. And this is article from November 18, 1989, and this is about how the decision was made to put the troops in Afghanistan. Let's see one way. Как принималось решение? So it's a big article, basically a conversation on two sides. How the decision was made to get the troops. So this is another one interesting to kind of translate. And it's actually it's the military newspaper, Krasnaya Zvezda, the Red Star. So there's another one. So let's see, I had a lot of it. And the most intense, I actually saved it and I glued them together. There was several newspapers these articles were going through. So there's a time about the Winter Olympics. Looking on the back of one of the articles. So that's called Командировка на войну. So the guy was assigned to go and cover the war. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's like 6 stories published in the 6 different issues of a newspaper. And so once again, that's the stories, real stories about Afghanistan, not the BS they fed us initially in the beginning of the 80s about the war. So yeah, so that's what I have about that. Jackie saying Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, Sergey and family. Thank you so much, everyone. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. It's coming up. Hopefully 2025 will be better than 2024. Truly hope for the war in Ukraine to be over and maybe Putin dying. That'll be great too. Okay. And generally, so I said, my generation got lucky, and the one got killed in Afghanistan. And then, of course, the total losses were about 15,000 troops. And that's what killed in Afghanistan, the Soviet soldiers. And then there was 50,000 wounded. Okay, we got a first donation for one of my longtime supporters, Koala1203. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And he says, I find it ironic to compare Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan to Americans since the Russian later on eventually similar scenario with Syria. That's actually a great point. Yeah, Syria was the situation when the Russians pretty much were kind of like Americans. At least Americans were planning, because I believe Trump signed the agreement about withdrawal troops. What is like 2019, and the withdrawal was 2020. So they had a little time to work through, maybe withdraw some troops. And here was pretty much 11 days, and the Syria government collapsed. So that's what pretty much what they faced when you only have the only way to evacuate by plane. Well, they have also ports and ships. So yeah, but yeah, good point. Thank you so much, and appreciate your donation. So yeah, 15,000 killed. There were some missing, and actually, I believe on my Russian YouTube channel, I had one guy commenting, and then he mentioned something that I'm not sure if he got captured or he just himself ran away, and he ended up through Pakistan, moving to America, asking for political asylum. So that was pretty weird. Let's see. Well, of course, similar to Vietnam situation when soldiers came back from Vietnam, and it's kind of similar situation, that was turned out to be bad war, right? So like after the end of World War II, American soldiers came home as heroes. After Vietnam War, a lot of Americans, they look at them as heroes. We had kind of similar situation in Soviet Union. Those guys who served in Afghanistan, they got a nickname Afghanets. So that's actually Afghani. So the name we use for Afghani people, that's how we called veterans of Afghanistan war. And of course, many of them had PTSD, which at that time was not really like research or known. So they had to suffer for all that problems. I remember reading an article, one guy said that for almost a year after he came home to some Russian town, any loud noise nearby, he will drop on the ground without even thinking, because that's how he survived. In Afghanistan, you hear the shout or anything loud, you drop. So there'll be, truck driving by and the exhaust will pop loudly and he'll be laying on the floor and people look at him like he is crazy. And a lot of those people, Afghansi, they later joined, they became like the most hardcore criminals, because it's hard for people to adjust to return to normal civil life, even in Soviet Union. And then of course perestroika time, They found themselves a lot, like out of work. No one cares. No one considers them heroes. Yeah, they got some medals. So they were one of the first one that joined the racketeering bands, and they were extremely dangerous and reckless because they already risked their life. They survived Afghanistan, so they didn't care. So they were the scariest. If there'll be like a mafia group, racketeering group of former Afghansi, those guys were scary. And unfortunately, I was young. I didn't never been in that business that have concern about it. But yeah, that was a big phenomena. You so-called Afghansi. Just they were the most dangerous and they were extremely disappointed how they were welcome back to country. A lot of people basically like, I didn't send you to Afghanistan. Why do you demand, some benefits or bonuses? So that was a big deal. And also I remember a story, maybe it was in one of these articles. So a guy came home and his girlfriend actually, like back in the days, maybe in America was the same. So a guy gets drafted and then his girlfriend just can't wait 2 years, start dating, and then he comes back and she already married someone else, broken heart. So in this case, uh, she waited for him and he came home, and he of course all still mentally in that war. And his girl takes him, that's perestroika time, 87 maybe, takes him to the market, to bazaar, and she wants him to look sharp, like, look, my boyfriend is back and I want him to look good. So she's trying to buy him American jeans. Hey, we'll get you Levi's. Let's get you all dressed up nice. And the guy who was just shot at with American, weapons made in USA makes me like sick to his stomach. And his girlfriend is trying him to wear American jeans, and they got into fight and they broke up. So she waited for him for 2 years, faithfully, and they broke up because he couldn't become cool guy like she wanted him to be, dressed in all American outfits, smoking Marlboros. He just like, I hate everything American because American weapons were killing us. Shooting stingers were shooting down our airplanes. So I recall that story. All right, we got another donation from Rock. Thank you so much. How much did average Soviet citizen know about Afghanistan before 1979? Uh, Not much. I mean, usually average Soviet person was pretty good with geography. We knew, where it's located, but not that much. Usually you learn more about the areas where there is like a military conflict. I don't think there was much going on in Afghanistan since I don't know even when. So I don't think we knew a lot. And of course, started learning when the troops moved in, and of course, you started learning like Bagram Air Base, right? Like now, most Americans know Bagram Air Base, and I was recognizing all those names because, like, oh yeah, that's what the Soviet Air Base was. Because Americans pretty much picked the same spots than the Soviets picked. It doesn't matter, the Soviet military, American military, they picked the strategic spots, strategic locations. So there was kind of like a deja vu for me to read news about Afghanistan and American troops because I recognize all those places. All these names of tunnels like Salam Channel, Bagram Air Base, and of course, capital of Afghanistan, Kabul. What are the other bigger towns? Like I knew them all by heart from the 80s, and now I see Americans going through all that, trouble again. So yeah, and aside the troops that went there, the official name был the name Воины Internationalisты, so the Warriors Internationalists. That was the official title. And of course, just like War of Vietnam, uh, Soviet soldiers discovered drugs, hard drugs. So they were shipping heroin and other drugs because poppies growing in Afghanistan. They were hiding them in the casks with the dead troops. We had a zinc, they may call them zinkovые гробы, zinc coffins, and they would fill them with drugs, with packets of drugs. Then, of course, Soviet troops, came, especially like early 80s. Afghanistan had access to the Western goods, So the Soviet soldiers go like in a local shop and they see American jeans and the stereos and all the goods they couldn't buy in the Soviet Union. So that would develop big black market when the Soviet soldiers will be stealing even ammo, even guns, AK-47s, and trading them so they can buy, you know, Panasonic boombox or VCR so they can ship it home. So that was another part of that too. It was pretty wild. And thank you. I got somebody from Canada. Greetings. And the next, we got another donation. Thank you so much, James. Appreciate it. You always support my work. America has many Vietnam veterans come home traumatized by the war. Many suffered from mental illnesses, drug abuse, and homelessness. How did Soviet vets fare? Everything pretty much the same except homelessness. That's the kind of issue we did not have. It was illegal to be homeless, so if somebody will get really bad, he'll be picked up at the street and sent to prison because it was illegal to be homeless. But as I said, I never met anyone who went through that problems, but obviously a lot of people had the same issue. And there's a lot of similarities, like you go to a country which is completely different climate, or like in the case of Afghanistan, it's so many mountains, high altitude. And there's another part I wanted to say, talk about it. I just did a little note so I don't forget. So original initially in 1979, when the Soviet government was thinking it's just going to be walk in the park, which is going to move troops, just like Putin thought was Ukraine. It's the same stepping on the same rake over and over again. When the government doesn't have a dictatorship, they don't have a backfeed information from other branches. They just want to hear yes, place yes people, yes men everywhere. They don't get big fat. So the expectation was, yeah, let's just be walk in the park, we just, you know, take over the country, set up the government we want, and pull out, and everything will be great. So initially, they sent troops from like stand republics, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, kind of those on the maybe not Uzbekistan, like Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, neighboring republics with Afghanistan, because those guys were also kind of that climate, living in the mountains, so they thought it would be good because those troops can handle better, harsh Afghanistan condition. And then they started having problems. Once they started having like fights and everything else, a lot of those troops just basically give up. They uh, desertire. I can't think English word. So they left, basically went to the other side because they like, a lot of them are like the same nationality. They just live on different side of the border, Afghanistan or Tajikistan, but they're Tajiks. So that was another big problem there. So they couldn't use those troops like Tajiks. So they started bringing Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, and those guys couldn't handle the climate because you come from the flatlands, and they just couldn't keep up. Hiking the mountains, running up in the mountains. So that was a big issue. All right, and we got sister. Thank you so much for donation. Appreciate it. So the question: have you seen the Ninth Company? Yes, I did. So that's one of the kind of more modern movies about Afghanistan war, called The Ninth Company. It's available on YouTube. Uh, it's a good show. Anyway, it's kind of was created during the Putin time, I believe. So that's was. I'm not sure I have mixed feelings about that movie, but yes, that's the movie I've seen, and they kind of mentioned the part that the people who went, the soldiers who went to Afghanistan, they were just not really prepared for the war and just generally being in the mountains, just like Vietnam. And I guess if you live in Michigan and you go to Vietnam, it's not really a good climate to survive in. So the question: can you recommend any good books on the Soviet-Afghan War that's in English? Good question. I don't know if we even had any good books in Russian on that war. As I said, I got articles, But book-wise, I need to research. I'm still stuck in World War II, trying to get that. But I'll look it up. I'll find something. If you guys, we got almost 87 people and only 36 likes. This is a big no-no. 94 people and only 36 likes. So yeah, if you join me, don't forget to like the stream. Maybe YouTube will notice. Uh, but yeah, by the way, if you guys know any books, I cannot think of any top of my head, and I don't have anything behind me that it's on Afghanistan. I'm still as like focused on the World War II and before that. But it's a good question. Yeah, I honestly don't know. So there's a question. In your opinion, will democracy ever flourish in Russia, given their history and reliance on tsars and dictators? Thank you. Happy holidays. Um, no. Uh, if you're thinking about Russia the way it is right now, the only way empire can stay together is to have a dictator. If you put democratic government, uh, Russia, it's a Russian Federation. It's the hodgepodge of occupied territories and hodgepodge of nations. Lenin used to call, and I think before him somebody, that Russia is the prison of nations, because the 600 something years or 800 years of Russian Empire or Kremlin Empire was a slow occupation and taking over nearby territories. So there's so many different nations. So you saw what happened when Yeltsin was president. Soviet Union collapsed, and it was the next stage. Russia became crumbling to pieces. Chechnya declared independence. So it's basically Russia in the current form can't survive. It needs to be prison of the nations. If you become democratic state, all those Chechnya, first of all, Dagestan, Tatarstan, there's so many Stan republics right now. The autonomous republics or regions of Russia. Those people are not Russians. They don't want to do anything with Russians. They're Muslims. They got their cultural differences, a lot of differences. As long as they see a chance to break away, they will. So that's what Putin was trying to clamp up and keep it together. I don't see no future, because Russia is an old-fashioned land empire, and sooner or later it will fall apart. It just because it's just such a collection of whatever they manage to grab, you know, and a lot of those nations they just biding their time waiting. Chechens tried twice, but it's once they feel it's the weakness of the Moscow Kremlin, they will run away. Just like when Soviet Union went belly up, those 15 republics just uh, you know ran for the exits as quick as they could. Let's see. So next question: what are some of your favorite personal Soviet movies? Uh, there's really no like movies that I wanted to watch over and over again. Really, one I really liked a lot. It's kind of newer one. It's called War, the Thief, and I think it's available on YouTube. But periodically, it just shows up. Let me see if I can find you a link. It actually says it will steal your heart. There's a lot of like old Soviet movies that I watched when I was a kid, and I like it then. But the Thief movie. Let's see. No, it comes. All right, I gotta look it up in Russian. It doesn't show up. But this one was really good. I like it a lot. It's about Stalin era, World War II. Let's see if I can find it for you here. Yep. it's available, but I'm not sure. I think almost everything right now on YouTube has the. It's 1997 movie, so it's post-Soviet Union. I like that a lot. So yeah, there's a link coming up. They should have subtitles. Okay. There's a lot. Oh, we got some people from Litva at 2:22 a.m. I appreciate your your dedication. Then, of course, there's another one I barely remember. The most popular movie during the Soviet era was the Pirates of the 20th Century, Пираты 20 века. That was for amount of people who went to watch it. That was number one of all times. Cheesy as heck right now, probably, but that was good. Probably should I'll make a separate video, just kind of go through. And that's 1979 movie. So yeah, this is still Brezhnev era. But that's when they got introduced to karate and all that stuff, man. Everyone was Kia. That was a okay. Pirates, 20th century pirates. It's like 20th century Fox, but the 20th century pirates. So the couple ones I can think of top of my head. So there's a comment from Lutuana ones or something that in his town he has a monument for 90 people that got killed. I believe there's a monument in Kiev too for the soldiers that died in Afghanistan. Of course, 15,000 for the 130 million. It doesn't sound like a lot, but still, it's everyone. It's individual tragedy. Um, Oh, by the way, the best movie, if you like horror movies, there's a really good Russian Soviet horror movie. Man, if they'll make it like Hollywood will make the remix, I think that'll be a kick ass. Fortunately, I don't know anybody in Hollywood that will be, but that one is. Let's see. Злой дух. And that's see if it's available. Yep. 1978, Злой дух Ямбуя. Really scary stuff. I remember watching it. I couldn't sleep well. Soviet horror movie. And you guys need to keep in mind, I was born 1971, so most of the Soviet era I was a kid, and a lot of like good serious movies I didn't care about. When a kid, you kind of leaning towards more entertainment stuff. So there's all like, oh, how about Walk and Watch? Иди и смотри. That was horrible. That World War II movie, they actually made us to go like school class. We skipped school. Like for free. We went to watch for free, and I didn't like that movie. That was just bad. Well, it's a good movie. It's a horrible movie, but not the one that I wanted to watch. So okay, looks like we're caught up. We got people joining and living. So thank you so much for joining. I already made some videos about Soviet movies, and I think I have a playlist. Let me see. Look it up. I think I have a Soviet movies playlist. I'll provide the link really quick. I covered it a little bit. As I said, it's just, I in 1980 I was 9. Vintage Soviet film and that. So And in the evening, when the good movie is being shown, my mom tells me to go to bed. I have to go to school tomorrow morning. And usually, decent movies, they'll show it after 9:30, after news program on every channel. So by the time there's a good movie out on TV, I need to be in bed. The only time I could watch something will be okay. So I have a playlist called Soviet Movies. It's only eight videos there right now, but I'll post it right there. Yeah, Solaris. Oh yeah, there's more coming up. Okay, just a second. Soviet movies. So I got my playlist came out. And there's a question movies like a Stalker and Solaris. I didn't like either. Uh, the movie Stalker, the book is outstanding. It's a Strugatsky brothers book, and it's called Picnic na обочине, so picnic on the side of the road. Book is amazing. Movie horrible. Like I believe I read somewhere that Strugatsky didn't like how the Tartakovsky moved the movie. He kind of went in the faraway land and that kind of search whatever. The book was outstanding. It could be amazing movie. I didn't like Stalker at all. I really like the book. Solaris, kind of similar story. I read the book. It's by the Polish writer Stanislav Lem. Book was not bad. Movie once again, Tarkovsky. Like for my maybe now I enjoy it more. When I was young, it was just like, oh my gosh, please. I would rather watch Swan Lake Ballet than his movies. It just didn't click with me at all. So yeah, I never claimed that I'm like a some searching for high end movies with the deep meaning. A lot of it, I usually like movies for entertaining value. That's not for deep thinking, unfortunately. So in that regard, I'm pretty shallow. Dr. Zhivago, I still haven't seen that movie. It's kind of even embarrassing. So, right, there's a Solaris, American Solaris, but there's a Soviet Solaris, and I think I watched George Clooney. And it's a slow paced and it's like this going crazy style movie. Some people enjoying it. I like when it comes to science fiction. I like more action packed movies. What about nice Soviet cartoon? Well, Ну Погоди, definitely. If you want just a basic Soviet style Tom and Jerry, that's the wolf chasing a rabbit. I'll give you the link. And of course, Winnie Pooh. That's priceless. Soviet Winnie Pooh is so much better than American Winnie the Pooh. Ну, погоди. See how interesting how we jump from the topic of Afghan war into the cartoons, Soviet cartoons. Okay, here we go. Ну, погоди, все выпуски. There's one that's actually going live. That's hilarious. They're constantly playing them. So there's this No Pagadi cartoon. That was probably the most popular cartoon on the Soviet era. It's pretty much Tom and Jerry style. Yeah, that was the best. And then Winnie Pooh. I'll get you that link. Wow, I got 12 million views. And that's a Soviet. Okay, got that out of the way. Question: what's up with the new Russian cure for cancer? The only cure for cancer I know it's to go to Ukraine and then return back. You have no life and no cancer. Otherwise, I never heard of anything about the cancer. Let's see what else we got. Any question? Can you suggest any book how Soviet system work, economical, social, administrative structure? Well, there is some good books on that topic. Let's see, where is one I had? I just moved it around. Russian Revolution. Where is it? It's kind of older one, published in California back in